Hey, you might know what a golpe is, that's when we tap the guitar, but do you know what a scissor golpe is? In this lesson, I want to show you what this technique is and how we can practice it two ways, using a pop song in 4/4 time, and then using one of the more esoteric flamenco forms where we count to 5. What is the scissor golpe and how do we do it? Well, a golpe is basically any time we tap the guitar, but typically we'll take our ring finger, keep the ring finger curved, and tap right here on the golpeador, or tap plate, and that's what that's for, so we don't eat a hole in our guitar. So this is one of the many ways that we can get percussive effects on the guitar. Of course, you might already know a slap like this. I mean, technically, golpe just means to hit something, right? So that's a hit of sorts, but when we say golpe, we usually mean hitting the fingernail, right? So you can do a golpe all by itself in the context of strumming some chords. You might hear something like this. Gives us a nice, crisp, trebly sound that kind of complements the strum that we might do. But what I call the scissor golpe is when we play a downstroke with our index finger and a golpe absolutely simultaneously like this. Did you hear me do it? Every time that I played an index downstroke in that example, I did a simultaneous golpe. So we have this scissor motion where we're going like this, even though we might think, well, this finger goes out and away from us and the ring finger goes down. Really, fundamentally, we're doing this kind of exchange where they go back and forth like pistons. One goes this way and the other one crosses at exactly the same time. So before we get into actual examples where we can play and practice this thing, I want you to take these two fingers, your index and your ring, and move them in opposite directions like this. You can keep your middle finger and your pinky stiff if you like, just to make sure that we're only moving these two. Those are the active fingers, but ultimately we'll try to relax those a little more when we can. And now that you've gotten comfortable with that, curve both of these fingers like this. Okay, the index finger is curved right here. Same with the ring finger, and now do the same thing, just a scissor motion back and forth like that. Okay, now with just open strings, I've got my thumb on the 6th string. It's good to have your thumb for stability just kind of anchored somewhere. And I'm going to do a downstroke with the index and do a golpe at the same time, but way, way, way easier said than done, right? So ultimately, we want to be able to do this, both of them at the same time. But chances are, if you're just starting with this, you're going to do them in a staggered way. We're going to hear the index and then a tap, or we might hear a tap and then an index. The way that we're going to get into this and make sure that we do it is to do a strum and then a tap as close as we can together, over and over and over, strum, tap, and then we're going to do the opposite. We're going to go tap, strum, tap, strum, tap, strum. If we do this enough, eventually they're going to meet in the middle and it's going to feel actually comfortable for them to go simultaneously. We can mute the strings here because it's all about the right hand for the moment. Got my thumb anchored here. I'm going to go down with the index and then I'm going to tap, but try to make those as close together as we can. So I'm going to go like this. Okay, remember, it's a scissor motion, but the ring finger goes more in like this, and this one goes out and away. But when you really get it going, you're really going to feel that scissor motion that you really can work on without a guitar on a desk or on your knee or in your car. Okay, so we have strum, tap, strum, tap, strum, tap. Now go backwards, go tap and then strum. So that means your index finger already needs to be up. Okay, now we're going to do one of each. Strum, tap, tap, strum. Strum, tap, tap, strum. Strum, tap, tap, strum. Now, you might not have it yet, but I guarantee that if you do that enough, eventually they're going to meet and we can do them at exactly the same time. And this is what we want. Okay, we're going to get into a weird flamenco thing in a second, but before we do that, let's play a Coldplay song. A minor, C major, and then we have F major 7, which is kind of the easiest way you can play F, really, instead of having to play that full bar, but it sounds real nice. And it really complements the key that we're in there, A minor. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, C, and then 2 measures of F major 7. That's a flamenco chord too. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's strum that now and see if we can add the golpe in. But first, just the strumming. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. A very common strum. Now I'm going to tap. So in that example, every time that I went down with the index finger, I did a simultaneous tap. That's our scissor golpe. But you don't have to do it every time you do an index downstroke. That's just to get the maximum practice. You could do that. You might want to do it just at the beginning of every measure, you could say. Okay, here comes the hard part. We're going to do some more difficult counting in a second, but what I want to work on before that is this. We have a 4-stroke rasgueo, And by the way, rasgueos, anytime we hit the nail against the string, just about. So I got my thumb here, and I'm going pinky, ring, middle, index. Well, check this out. Watch this. Pinky, ring, middle, scissor. Right there on the last stroke of a 4-stroke rasgueo. Pinky, ring, middle, and then a simultaneous index downstroke with a golpe. So how fast can you do this? Really cool. Pretty weird. And we're combining two things together. If you can do what I just did, you'll be able to do this scissor golpe in a million different combinations. But I want to show you a great way to practice this using a flamenco form called Seguiryas. Let me play it first, and we'll talk about why we're doing it, why it's such a good exercise, and how to count it. So what we had there is the basic compás of a flamenco form that really allows us to do a 4-stroke rasgueo, where we do a simultaneous golpe on that index finger, and it empties out right there, and there's a perfect spot to recover and do it again. So I think it would be great if we just sat around and did this. See, we're stopping there at the end because we need to recover so we can start it again, but that fits perfectly the rhythm of this form. So how do we count this? Well, the Coldplay song was easy, right? We went 1, 2, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So that's got a little bit of an interesting thing happening there where there's a tie over the third beat. Very, very common strum, as I said. But the Seguiryas rhythm is completely a world apart when it comes to the rhythm. We're going to count to 5, but in a weird staggered way like this. 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and... Notice there, every time that there was a number, I did the scissor golpe. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, and... There's another way to count this where we can count in groups of 2 and 3 like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Counting to 5 can make it a little bit easier to count, actually, believe it or not, because at the end, when you say 5 and, it's clear when it's beginning again. But if you said 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, it's easy to confuse that last 1, 2 with the first 1, 2. But any way that you want to do it. And ultimately, of course, it would be great if we just felt it and didn't have to count it at all. So here it is again. Let's do it nice and slow. 1, and a 2, and a 3, and a 4, and a 5, and... If you noticed, I was doing the 4-stroke like this, where you bring your fingers in and you flick it off of your thumb. That just makes it pop a lot more. And whenever you see a flamenco guitarist bend their thumb in like this, that's what they're doing. They're flicking off of their thumb like this. You get a lot more power out of it that way. Especially if your pinky's weak, you don't have to worry about powering it by itself. You can kind of let the thumb take over and just flick it off like that. But either way, if that feels weird to you, just do a normal one. I find it to be harder, though, for this particular form, for this particular passage. I don't know why. Where we go pinky, ring, middle, and then scissor. If none of this makes any sense to you at all, but you still want to get into Spanish guitar, check out my workshop where we talk about the 3 fundamental techniques, the 3 most important, the 3 essential techniques for the right hand, and how best to play them. Is going to save you tons of practice time in the long run to get that going right the first time. But if you don't need that help, check out this next video where I show you all the different percussive effects we can get on nylon string guitar.